such a tough spot to be in if we're tacos. Obviously, we're pretty new to the game, and we have aces,
Yeah,
but we have no clubs, blockers.
Right.
We have some straight blockers if he has like queen nine, king X.
Yeah, so again, Peter did pot it, did bet 1680.
Okay, D-Gents, welcome to the channel. Tacos is in a tough spot facing a pot-sized bet with just ace. What is he to do? In today's video, I will do a deep dive into the hand from the beginning as if I were Tacos and share my thought process and perspective on what his best decision is and why.
Tacos is going to go ahead and bump it up, raise it to 225. Ace, ace, king, deuce. Does have three spades in his hand. Peter calls, and now Hang is going to go ahead and put in the call as well.
Okay, first decision point. Tacos goes approximately full pot, $225 first to act with ace, king, 2. It's always a good idea to raise and put money in the pot with aces, so no fault here. One thing for us to consider, though, is that there is a button straddle for $75, and this will become important later in the hand. So we need to be thinking about it. Are we thinking about the button straddle as a blind raise, and therefore we're going to play appropriately for 25 big blind in terms for a $25 big blind in terms of stack sizing? Or are we going to think about the blind straddle as a straddle or an extra blind? And then that tremendously changes, and this will become important later in the hand. So to open for full pot, I think that's a good decision. But with these button straddles, sometimes you have to ask yourself, are you ever raising under the gun with hands besides aces? If the answer is yes, then okay, go ahead. Raise aces 100% of the time because it balances out the other hands that you raise. If the answer is no, then raising here with aces might not be the best decision. And the reason why, with ace, king, 2, 3 spades, it's just not going to flop that well that often. And you're going to have to play out of position with quite deep stacks. And I think it would be much better to have a full limping strategy under the gun. And then you can check raise with some of your really strong hands or just have more playability across more runouts. It's hard to flop really well with this hand. Okay, let's see how the action continues.
So Peter, Hang, and Tacos in a hand. Jack 10-5.
Okay, nothing to see here. Raising with the aces and getting the Jack 10-5 flop with 2 clubs, and you have no clubs in your hand. I think this is a clear check. Really nothing else advisable to do.
Tacos checks it over. 500 the bet from Peter. Fold from Hang.
Tacos picking up some massive hands.
Yeah, he is.
Look at the equity in this. It's so sick.
Okay, now the hand gets interesting. It looks like PT has bet 500 into the pot of approximately 650 or 700. And you're sitting here with ace, king, 2. I think this is a call. The reason that you want to call here is sometimes with aces you just have the best hand. The times that you don't have the best hand, you have the gutter ball to make the nuts. And it's a board that PT will want to bet on a lot when checked to. Just with he's the flatter in position and relatively deep stacks, he's going to have more of the Jack 10, 8, 9, the King, Queen, Jack 10, just more of the very smooth rundown hands that want to put money in on this pot. So this is a board he's going to bet quite often, and with having aces, I think you have to call because he's also going to bet with any of his pair and flush draws, pair and straight draws, and so many hands he's going to want to bet on this board, trying to get one player to fold who, as the pre-flop raiser, you're going to have a lot of overpairs, like in this case you do with the ace-ace. So it would make sense for him to want to bet and start to apply pressure. But with ace-ace, I think you have to call. The only hands you're losing to are Jack 10, 10, 10, and Jack, Jack, which those hands are possible. But there are so many pairs and a flush draws that you're doing well against. And if you get a clean turn card, you can just get all the money in with the best hand.
Could get away from a lot of bad turn cards, but that is a pretty clean one for tacos.
It is.
Now the equities have shifted.
He is still going to check it again.
Yeah, I think Peter might just try and get it in.
He did take a look.
He knows tacos is pretty new at this, so.
Yeah, 1680 is what is the max he could put in. That is what is in the pot.
It looks like that is what he's gonna put. 1680.
So Peter
Okay,
pot it.
we've reached the thumbnail and the true tough decision of this hand. So sitting here with aces, you check. He goes for full pot and on the offsuit 4. So what is his full pot size bet representing? He's representing that he has Jack-Jack, 10-10, or Jack-10. The same hands he was representing for value by betting on the flop. However, he still has all the hands that would want to bet and apply pressure to a one-pair hand, such as Jack in a straight draw, Jack in a flush draw, 10 in a flush draw, 10 in a straight draw. There's endless amount of hands here that he'd be wanting to bet and put money in. So with that being said, a full pot size bet, I think this is a hand that you have to call with. If your plan was to call on the flop to get a safe turn and then to also call on when you get the safe turn, then I think you have to follow through. I think you should be calling or check raising and getting all the money in so that you can stack his draws or put the money in while you're ahead. If you were to fold this turn, then you should have just been folding on the flop, because this is the best turn that you can ask for, and I think you have to go with your hand at this point. So let's see what he decides to do.
Yeah, so again, Peter did pot it, did bet 1680, now at 3360.
Yep, math do check out.
And tacos will let it.
Wow, he folds. I guess that's not surprising, right? A lot of people do not want to put a lot of money in with one pair in PLO. So he found the fold here. Let's talk about maybe why he would have found the fold, or maybe probably what his thought process is for folding in this situation. As you remember, the hand started with a $75 straddle on the button, and Tacos here was the first to raise to full pot, being the first to act under the gun. Now, if you remember earlier in the video, I mentioned that, we need to take a view in these situations that are we going to view a button straddle as a blind raise or a blind, right? I think if we were to view it as a blind, and that was, let's say you're playing 5-5 PLO and that was a $10 straddle, you open for 50, call, the player bets 100, call, and now on the river he's betting 250 and you only have $1,000 stack, or less than $1,000 stack, because in this scenario it would be like the equivalent of having $600 stack. I think you're going to call every time. So this raises a question. Was Tacos here afraid of putting the money in because it was relative a lot of dollars, or was he folding because he thought it was the right thing to do? It's my opinion that it was likely because it was a lot of dollars and not necessarily big blinds in relation. So one of the learnings that we have to take in this situation is that when money's dead, I think it's best to think about it as a blind. And you're putting a player who's capable, like Peter is. I mean, I'm pretty sure he's a professional and this is what he does for a living. He's going to recognize these situations and recognize that it's hard for you to have a really strong hand on this board because, you wouldn't have given up the betting lead, right? So he's going to try to apply pressure on you in any of his pair straight draws, pair flush draws, and sometimes you just have to make a stand and put the money in, right? You're going to be up against a lot of variance in the fact that even those hands that he would turn into a bluff that you're ahead of, they're going to have a ton of equity against you. You might only be 65, 50% favorite with one card to come. So you're still going to lose quite often, even though you have the best hand. But that's part of the game. You know, if you're going to play this game and you're going to be in a game where it's big stakes and the straddles are on, you have to not think about the money and just think about everything in relation to blinds. So let's see what Peter had in his hand.
And Tacos will let it go.
Let it go. Technically ahead, but it's...
Okay. Peter had the hand that we could beat. He had the pair, straight draw, flush draw with one card to come. So with the aces, we would have been a favorite against this hand. Now, quite often on the river, we will lose. But, you know, you got to put the money in when you're ahead. And if you do that more often than not, at the end of the day, you're going to have all the money. But part of this game in PLO is there's variance, so you have to be comfortable with it. So one of the main learnings and the takeaways that, you know, I hope all of you get from this video is you have to think about hands in terms of big blinds and not in money, right? Once you start thinking about the money, good players are going to take advantage of you, and they're just going to put you to the test when they know that you can never have a really strong hand, right? As the Tacos played this hand, he can never have Jack-Jack. He can never have 10-10, especially since Peter has a Jack. So it's pretty much giving Peter a license to just go pot, pot, pot. And I'm sure on a blank river, he would have potted again. So I really think the best decision for Tacos to have done is, you know, once he called the flop and he got the blank turn, at that point, he would have had to make up his decision that he's either going with his hand or he should have folded the flop, right? You can fold easily if a flush comes. You can fold easily if like a king or a queen comes, something that's a very scary card that completes an obvious straight. But when you get the offsuit 4 against a player who's capable of bluffing, you just have to go with your hand and pray to the variance gods that you don't get fucked. All right, well, thank you all for watching. Tune in again for the next video.